This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action, and you're listening to the Krypton Report.
Hi, this is David Patrick Wilson. I played Superman, Clark Kent, in the television production of It's a Bird, It's a Plane, enjoying every minute of being right here on the Krypton Report.
Welcome to the Krypton Report podcast. I am one of your hosts, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the Man of Tomorrow. With me is my co-host in crime, that jolly old St. James, the Man in Red, the Man of Steel, Mr. James Cole.
You're rushing the holiday, man. My favorite holiday hasn't even got here yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to rush Arbor Day. Or what else we got?
Halloween, bro.
I know. Me and Sayla. We had a deep conversation about favorite holidays and stuff today, as Sayla decided that she will go as Peacemaker for Halloween. So, and I was like, you know what? Whatever. I don't care. So I'm working on we're working on her helmet right now. I ordered her a shirt, and yeah. But we have
fantastic. I can't wait till you finish that.
We are so I'll go ahead and introduce our next guest, and then I'll tell you more about Sayla's peace journey. I have with us from the Single Bound podcast, Mr. Logan Crowley. Welcome, Logan.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really excited about it.
I'm glad you're here. Me and Logan, or Logan and I, actually met this summer, which is interesting because usually like we'll have people on the show and then I'll meet them later, you know. But we met in Metropolis, so it was cool. And I was like, I was like, you definitely have to get on the show, man. We gotta cast together.
It was a wild confluence of unlikely events because we were both watching Ed Gross's his panel at the Superman celebration, and then he called a kid up out of the crowd for the raffle, and the kid just happened to draw her own dad on the first shot to win the prize. And then the dad started talking, and I didn't recognize him from looks because I only ever listened to the show on Spotify. But as soon as you started talking, I went, "Oh my God, that's Tyler Patrick. He's from Krypton Report and digging for Kryptonite." And heard you on Man of Steel too, or Men of Steel. So yeah, I just as soon as you started talking, I went, "Oh, I know that guy."
It was great. Logan was rocking like the George Reeves old style hat, you know.
That's a everyday wearer for me. It's
speaking of George Reeves, real quick. I don't know if you guys. I shared this. I don't know, Logan, if you've seen this. I'll send it to you. There are 4 new Superman pop figures that are coming out.
I did see this.
Okay, good. And one is a George Reeves, and that's the one that I have to get. Like I'm still very much upset that this year we did not get a McFarlane run of figures dedicated to the other Superman. Like, you know, I was hoping, like how they did a few years back, they did the big Batman box set thing. I was hoping that we'd get a Brandon Routh, we would get a George Reeves.
I think George Reeves' rights are tied up in a weird way because he didn't have any kids.
That's true.
So he, the last time I did any deep dive on it, that's one of the reasons why everybody had the bizarre CGI ghost faces in The Flash, apparently, is they weren't sure whether or not they could get the rights to George Reeves' face. So their solution was to make everyone not look like themselves as much as him, so that they do all of them. That's at least the scuttle that I've read on it.
Yeah, but I just wish that we would have, gotten a McFarlane of him and of Brandon and even Tom from Smallville, like in the black trench coat, would have been awesome.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly.
So, on a quick journey back to my lovely daughter, my daughter loves John Cena, right? And played Mortal Kombat 11 and Peacemakers on it, and um, I edited out some of the violence from the Suicide Squad so the kids could watch it because they really wanted to see it. So I've been meticulously editing Peacemaker season 1 into a very unique experience so that my daughter could see some of John Cena being Peacemaker. And it's so fun. And she goes, I want to be Peacemaker for Halloween. And I'm like,
The only person who knows Peacemaker as intimately as James Gunn's Tyler Patrick. Editing it for his kids.
That is some high level dad foo. I'm re-editing a whole TV show so you can watch it.
That's how I love my kids.
My dad he'd have me watch the regular one, but he'd just grab my head and stick it in his armpit for however long the part I couldn't see lasted. And then he'd be like, all right, you're good. And he'd let me go.
That's how it works. Cover your eyes. Looking through the cracks.
We still joke about 12-year-old Tyler watching Titanic at my mom's reach, not being able to reach me, but covering my brother's eyes, but can't get mine. And he just tilting my head like, this is a good movie.
I had a similar experience when Watchmen came out. Me and a buddy were really excited, and we were in probably the 9th grade. And at the last minute, his mom decided, if he's so excited about this, I'll bet it's going to be a pretty good movie, and decided to come and watch it with him and sat right next to him, particularly through the whole owl ship Leonard Cohen scene. And it was not fun for him. It was a blast. I was laughing as hard as I could. That scene already is too long. It felt like it was about 20 minutes in that scene.
I bet.
I mean, it's one of those scenes like we get it, but that's not what we're here to talk about, fellas. We're here to talk about two things. First of all, we're going to kick off our conversation with just a light conversation of the 2-issue run of Superman Convergence that came out in, I think, March. I could be wrong. Of 2015. Now these 2 issues are
looks like April.
what make these 2-ish. Okay, see, I knew it was in the
Very
spring.
close.
See, I was close. These are the comics where Jon Kent was born. Okay. They're written by Dan Jurgens, and I had the pleasure a few years back with James. We were at Motor City, and I got to meet Dan Jurgens. And I asked him, everyone's like having him sign, Death of Superman and everything. But I have him sign Convergence #1 and the Superman Lois and Clark #1. And I said, it was really great that when you wrote these books, the year that, 2015, you wrote this story about the birth of Jon Kent, is the same year that my son was born. So while you're making Superman a father in the comics, I'm becoming a father in real life. And it just really meant a lot to me as a Superman fan. And then we talked briefly about Bendis, who I despise for aging up Jon Kent. Yeah. And then there is a very interesting recent issue of Shazam that I hate. It was just a one and done throwaway book that I think could really help with some stuff. But I think it's Shazam 20. I could be wrong because I don't have it in front of me. But anyways, so it's 10 years of Jon Kent, and the character just means a lot to me. As the year that Superman became a father is the year that I became a father. So,
that's beautiful. I totally understand. He hits me in a big way too, because it feels like a long time now, but the biggest gap in my comic reading in my life was during the New 52 when Scott Lobdell took over the Superman books.
You didn't miss much.
Well, I got so mad I quit, and then I was also in college, so it was a lot more frugal for me to get mad than it would have been for me to stay on board. But I came back in 2016, and the comic shop that I go to, my dad worked there for 20 years when I was growing up or something like that, or 17 guys who run the store, because I know them really well. And it just so happened when I came in, Lois and Clark #1 was on the shelf. And I thought, well, hey, #1 new Superman book. He's got a beard. I was out of the loop. And golly, it just, that book hit me like a ton of bricks. And my wife read that. That was the first comic my wife ever read monthly, was Lois and Clark, because she wanted to know what she had just read for all seasons a couple years before that. So she was interested in reading more Superman stuff. So me and her read that together, and then I was off to the races. So that Jon Kent means a lot to me for that too. I think a lot of people have that relationship with the Rebirth Superman to some degree or another. It feels very much like a homecoming for fans of the character.
I really agree with that, because at first I didn't read the book, I think, until issue 2 came out, and I had to go back and find issue 1. Or yeah, that feels about right, because at first I didn't really look at what the title was. I was just like, oh, it's going to be another just Superman title. Like, I thought it was going to be just another kind of off the side Superman title, right?
Yeah.
So I really was like, I am not gonna commit to another one, and then when I really started to see and read about like what was coming out of it, I was like, oh, this sounds so interesting. So then I was like, well, yep, gotta go get that book. And I remember just kind of getting them all and reading it. And I've read it. I've gone back several times and I've read it. It's just a really great story. And
I think people devalue how good it feels, because comics, a lot of it is the illusion of moving forward. But when a character, especially one as long-lived as Superman, I think that's what makes the Triangle Era so great. Is the Triangle Era felt like a lot of forward motion. But then when Loeb and Kelly take over, it's wonderful. I love those comics. But as far as his progression of his status quo and his personality and everything, he got married. He came back from the beginning for a million different reasons until, these books we're talking about today, and Lois and Clark and Rebirth. And then it feels like his family really has progressed, and his status quo has progressed since then in a way that it wasn't allowed to for a long time.
And what James, you always say, like comics are like continually in the second act.
Yeah, comics pretty much exist in a perpetual second act. There's like no end. It always just keeps moving forward.
And I feel like, I thought, Jon Kent, in the story. So let's just talk about in the story of Convergence. It's Lois and Clark are on this planet world that has a dome over it.
Well, all they know, they're in Gotham and they're trapped there with a dome over it, and Superman no longer has his powers.
And because he doesn't have powers and everything, it's different than being under like a kryptonite effect where Lois gets pregnant. And then the gist of it is all these people are released to battle. And it's basically all these timelines that have been brought to have been saved outside of time by Talos with Brainiac. And we have the Flashpoint Superman basically kidnaps, steal Lois because he sees Lois as the only person that was ever nice to him. and then sees that she's pregnant, takes her to Batman, who is Thomas Wayne, and John's going to be born. And then what happens is Clark shows up, and John is born, but he's born in the Batcave of that, And I was like, that's cool, but like, I think it would have been more if Thomas had actually delivered the child. Just because there's that connection and everything. But
no, I agree with that. I often refer to Flashpoint as the universe of missed opportunities, because it feels like this is the original Flashpoint comic, but everything that ever ties in with this universe, I feel like is the best it ever is cool with an asterisk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, it's neat, but what if they had, and you can do that with a world where Captain Cold is the hero of Keystone City, great idea, nothing really happens with it. The idea that Abin Sur, an alien, is having to be the Green Lantern of a world of humans that aren't like him, great idea, nothing really happens with it. And that's true here still, the idea of Thomas Wayne and Superman meeting and delivering his kid, and it just doesn't quite get the time to breathe. I think a lot of times with Flashpoint, they're always rushing through anything with these Flashpoint characters for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. And I just felt like, I don't know, Superman delivering his own child. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, but like the idea of needing to rely on someone else, and this case being Dr. Thomas Wayne kind of comes out of retirement and is a doctor again to bring in Superman's child. I just think, that's pretty heavy. Yeah.
It would have been great.
But I do enjoy just that story because I love seeing Clark and Lois.
I mean, Thomas is there, guiding him with his knowledge as a doctor throughout the whole thing. He's with him the whole time. I mean, I know he's probably he hasn't been a surgeon in a long time, and he's been a drinker, and he's been in a lot of fights, and he probably doesn't have those hands anymore.
I just like that would have been a good story. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Something
they did
there.
breeze through it because I bet if this was a more of an arc instead of 2 issues,
yeah,
probably would have had something more with that.
I mean, I agree.
Yeah.
Something that I was kind of disappointed in is, in the Flashpoint world, Cyborg is the man. Like, all the other characters have been removed, and Cyborg, and that was one of my favorite ideas, is that Cyborg, in the vacuum created by all these other superheroes getting erased, becomes the greatest hero in the world, and is very competent. He's overwhelmed, but I would have liked to have seen a little more of that in the fight with the Flashpoint characters.
Yeah,
I would have liked to have seen him and Superman, this version of Cyborg that is, for all intents and purposes, the Superman of that world, morally, in a technical sense. I would have liked to have seen his interaction with Superman have more of a moment.
I get behind that. I can stand behind that. I feel like you said the Flashpoint, just something's missing. But and then Tom Taylor, we love Tom Taylor. In his book retcons John's birth, making him born kind of more naturally in the fortress, and that's okay, but they don't really explain how he was able to be conceived. Not that I need a lot of detail or anything, but the idea that we're in this world where he's depowered, but
I will say I don't have anything against Tom Taylor as a guy, and I do, and I have I struggle with how much I dislike Tom Taylor's writing, because a lot of the people who don't like Tom Taylor's writing dislike it for reasons that I don't really want to lump in with. But I constantly have frustrations. I feel like Tom Taylor's writing comes across a lot to me as very fanficky, in a lot of like a lot of the emotional stuff is really shallow a lot of times, and I feel like the significance of this being in the Batcave delivered by Batman's dead father really, or with his guidance, I feel like that kind of went over Tom's head when he switched that out. I mean, even if it had been Batman, if you're gonna retcon it, because I guess Convergence never happened now. And in fairness, I don't know that I ever understood what was going on in Convergence. So I've tried to go back, but that's an event that if you missed it the first time, trying to figure out what order to read everything in is.
I feel like the only purpose of Convergence was to have fun one last time with some of these characters and timelines, and then to move that post-crisis Superman into the main continuity, and have your death of the New 52 Superman, and then have him replaced with this post-crisis Superman as almost like a cheat of, oh, how do we get back to Superman and Lois being married and this more mature, older Superman who's a leader? Well, we'll just kind of do this. I feel that's the only thing that really came out of Convergence.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, for a storyline that basically has 89 issues, that's every tie-in. Yeah, it's that being the only thing. I mean, it's solid. So bringing Jon Kent and bringing us that Superman, but yeah.
Do you
go ahead?
I was gonna say, Logan, do you have the DC app?
I do. I have it open right now.
Okay, I'm gonna try to find something real quick and send to you, but just I sent it. Let's see if I can find this. But yeah, so I mean, there's not a whole lot to that issue other than the beautiful birth and everything that is for Jon Kent. But yeah, well, I mean, any other special takeaways you guys have?
I really liked getting to see the Flashpoint world act like a Justice League. I would have loved for Citizen Cold to be there, but to have Abin Sur and their Kal-El and Captain Thunder and Cyborg be a team and fight Superman, I thought that was really neat. And I thought the fight was incredibly well drawn and well, captured. Both the Lee Weeks part and the Jurgens part. I love Lee Weeks as Superman. Anytime I can get more of that. And then, of course, Dan Jurgens is a Mount Rushmore guy. So,
I am working on trying to get another interview to talk with Mr. Jurgens, and I really believe that he is probably one of the most prolific Superman writers and Superman contributors to just the story when you start looking at the decades and times that he's worked in. Because, you look at some of the older comics, what made Crisis such a big deal was there was nothing like it. And now we have a Crisis every 2 years, maybe, or so. And it's just gotten ridiculous.
Yeah.
But you think about how Dan has worked in comics on Superman post-Crisis, death, in the death of Superman, in Rebirth, in New 52, in the current, what I'm saying? Like, it's just, I think his influence, spans and covers so much that I don't think he often gets the
He's almost like a Claremont for the X-Men. He's contributed so much to what people consider like seminal stories for Superman over the last few decades.
But yeah, I mean, if I close my eyes, if you say Superman and I close my eyes, it's Dan Jurgens' art that I see. And that and that's even considering like his look for Superman is not really my ideal. I like a more chunky, corn-fed Superman if I get to pick, more like Mike Wieringo or Al Plastino or something like that. But that doesn't change the fact that if you say Superman, my knee-jerk reaction is Dan Jurgens' art, because I think he does the most quintessential Superman that there is. And I think he is the one guy. I think he and Kurt Swan are the two spots on the Superman Mount Rushmore that are locked in. We can debate till the cows come home after that, but their takes on the character's look are just absolutely. When you see their version, you know exactly what era you're looking at and exactly what that Superman is and who drew it.
It's true. Exactly. So I mean, that's the Convergence story. We're good there. The other story that we're here to talk about is a recent book, and that is the Superman The World. I got this in hardcover. It, and then right after I bought it, when it dropped on the app. And I like this in theory, an idea. And Logan and I talked a little bit about it. Just, the stories take place of Superman stories in the United States, Spain, Italy, Syria. Hold on, I'm trying to read. Cameroon, India, Argentina, Turkey, France, Brazil, Poland, Mexico, Germany, Czech Republic, and Japan. And of course, the first story, Let Slip the Dogs of War, Dan Jurgens, and it takes place in America. And this is probably my second favorite story out of this. But
well, each of the artists and writers are from each region, each country,
which I think is fascinating, because they really try to put their spin on the story. So let's get into this. And like I said, we can tell which one's our favorite as we go. But the Dan Jurgens story is basically Clark and Lois are on a plane, and something's going on, and Clark has to go to the bathroom and find a way to sneak off the plane. And there is a giant kaiju looking thing. Would
basically.
You guys say?
Yeah.
And the point is that Superman basically finds out that it's an alien who's stuck here and just needs help getting off the planet. And Superman helps him get off the planet, because no one actually wanted to try to interact to help him. They just assumed that he was a threat and attacked. And then he has to slip back on the plane before, he's noticed. So I found I really enjoy, first of all, I really enjoy these 8 to 10 page, stories collections. Like I really, years ago when James and I did the whole review of the Superman Blue books, red and blue books. When they did that whole run, do you remember that, Logan? Like when they did like Wonder Woman, like black and gold, and Harley was like red and white or something, like where it's just, different artists, different writers doing these shorter stories in collections. And I really like that. So like the idea of this was, pretty exciting for me just up front, but, at the end of the day, I don't know if I loved it as much as I wanted to.
I think, I'm in the same boat. I think some, like my top 3 were the Czech Republic was my favorite, and then Poland, and then Mexico.
My favorite is Superman in Granada.
I really like that. Actually, I really like
Yeah,
that one.
Jorge Jimenez and Alejandro Sanchez. That one's a really good one.
That's my favorite because I love seeing just Superman down with the people and he's doesn't have his powers and no one believes he's Superman and I just love when it's the little girl is in danger and he goes to save her knowing he doesn't have his powers, but that's what kickstarts his powers returning, and then he goes and helps everybody, and then everyone believes he's Superman. And I have a soft spot for Superman, just in the costume, no powers, and everyone's kind of like, oh yeah, all right, sure, guy, dude.
I would think the India look for Superman would be up your alley there, Logan. You said the more corn-fed, chunky-looking Superman.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
thicker in that issue. The artist there.
We flip over back to it. The art in this, a lot of it is just incredible.
Oh yeah, so much of it is so good.
But I feel like a lot of them either took this as an opportunity to do a tour of their country. Yeah, actually, I might have lied a minute ago. I think I might like India better than Mexico. I'm glad you pointed that out. I had forgotten about this one as I was flipping through. A lot of them either took an opportunity to make the story either a tour of their country or to introduce a national insert superhero into the DC universe.
I thought the Italy one was interesting, like him kind of in the Inferno of Hell, but I felt like it was a little intense and
yeah, I know. It was almost like they were trying to invoke a Dante's Inferno feel,
right? Because it even has him writing it and writes, "This looks like a job for Superman." I kind of wish that it had, that was one I could have really benefited from a whole story, but yeah, what is it? Is it the Cameroon one has the local folklore, but inserts their own heroes and everything like you're talking about.
Yeah. What is it? Passamoto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And some of these are good characters, but I think the page count was working against them because they have basically, if they want to have any action, there's got to be a fight. If they want to introduce a new character and make them look good, they've got to do well. So a lot of those stories are some character you've never heard of just kind of trouncing Superman for a little bit. And I don't, while a lot of these characters, especially the Cameroon guy has a great look. I would love to see more of them. I don't know that this was the best use of your time.
Right. No, I 100% agree. I'm flipping back to the India one I do like.
Yeah, the Poland one is really good, and I did the the Czech Republic one is one of my favorites. I like the suit. He's older. He's got the old white beard and the gray hair, and he comes through the entire place just to get a video of his mother, because he's always had Jor-El in the fortress, but he's never had anything of Lara, and he finally tracks something down, and that's really awesome.
The Brazil one was interesting.
The art on that one, I feel like kind of let me down. There was a lot of that where I was having trouble telling what was going on.
And I feel like sometimes that's the problem. Not the problem. It's art, it's subjective, but there's there might be a great story, but the art I just can't get through.
Yeah.
That's why Tyler's never read Arkham Asylum.
Hey, I am making my way through it now that I have it on the app.
Oh, are you?
Because I've always had trouble reading the words.
I'll tell you, I might be. I thought I was the only one, but I have never finished Arkham Asylum and it's been about a decade since I've tried. But certainly when I was younger, I really wanted to read it and couldn't tell what the hell was going on.
Yeah, like I couldn't read the words, and then I was like, okay, I downloaded it from the app so I can go, panel by panel and all that and blow it up and really look at it. So I started reading it and then just haven't gone back because so much other stuff to read to actually record on.
The art and the lettering in Brian Michael Bendis's Hellspawn run is very much similar to Arkham Asylum. So it's a tough one to go through too.
On that lettering front and Superman related, I don't know if it's a Bronze Age thing that I had never seen before or what, but somebody in the Superman office a few months ago decided that Bizarro's speech bubbles needed to be black with dark green letters. And I would like to throttle that whoever. It started happening in every comic. And it's hard enough to tell what Bizarro World Bizarro is saying anyway. When you add in that I can't read it, like it's not helping the situation.
Yes. And this is why I struggle with Bizarro.
Yeah.
I also did love how they put Japan at the end, so you have to flip to the back and read it like a manga.
I thought that was smart. The Poland, you guys talked about the Poland one. Yeah, I did like that. I thought that was cool. The like ice kind of princess, the symbol of rebirth and all that. I thought that was cool. The Mexico one. The Mexico one I struggled with because the art was a little jarring just from what we've been dealing with to all of a sudden being like, boom, here's something very playful and cartoony. Even though the story was, pretty good, but the German one, the art, it was.
Did you have fun pronouncing all of the Mexican deity and names throughout here? Reading all of their backgrounds and stuff.
That's the joy of just reading to yourself. I don't have to screw it up, and be on,
Well, the joy when you're by yourself is, can you try and pronounce it? What does it sound like when you try and pronounce it out loud when you're by yourself?
And then when you go back to it later, like, oh, so that's how it said. Oh, I screwed that up.
I did feel like, interestingly, the Mexico one seemed like it had the most trouble translating. And that was weird because where I live in Georgia is about 50% Hispanic. So it was weird to me that would be the issue, that they seem to have trouble getting the sentence like conjugation translated over right, even more than the Czech Republic or Cameroon or some of these, places where it seems like they would have been able to find somebody who could have done that. You talked about Germany. There's something about the Germany one that I don't know, that feels kind of snide. I can't really put my finger on it, but it almost feels more like they're laughing at Superman than laughing with him. It almost reminded me of something that might have run in Mad Magazine or something like that.
There you go. I was trying to figure out what it was reminding me of, and that's what it was.
I was thinking like Dilbert comic strips.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I see that too.
I would not have put this right next to Mexico though, because I feel like Mexico's achieves the vibe that this was going for better. And if you had spaced them out, I don't know that I would have been as put off by Germany. But having, Mexico has a very it's cartoony, but it's Superman, you know. Whereas
Mhm.
this, like I said, it seemed more like the Super Duper Man strips or something like that.
I like that Superman.
So I think I might have restructured that a little bit if I was them.
Let's see.
Although, call me a hypocrite if you want, though, because that is a corn-fed Superman in Germany,
Yeah.
or you know, kraut-fed, however you want to say it. He's big.
And then, of course, the manga one at the end, like James said, like you have to go to the back, and then, you know, and it is actually, this one is funny. It's all about him trying to get some food, you know. So it is kind of like different, and I like how there's a page that explains the order to read, you know, the way to read it. But I don't. Will I go back to a lot of these stories? Probably not. I will probably reread the second one. Like I said, the Jorge Ramirez, because I really like Spain.
Yeah,
like it.
there was a few that I would reread, a handful that I would reread. I mean, when it comes to the Superman Meshi, there's a whole thing on the app, a whole run of this Superman and Batman, all done in manga. So that's all on the app too. So I mean, if you like this, or if you want to dip into the other stuff, there's a lot more of that on the app for at least Superman and Batman that I've seen.
But now, one thing, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the one, if I was only gonna come back to one, and I'm glad you reminded me about India, because I really do love India and I love the way they do the art. But if I was only going to come back to one, I think the Czech Republic won the book for me. I think that's a great Superman design. The art is just, the art and the colors in that one are just incredible, and it was the one that I feel like, most importantly, I feel like it used its runtime the best. Right. It got in. It had a very heartfelt moment. It showed you a very interesting world, and then it got out. I would, if they said tomorrow there was going to be a 12-issue run set in this time period with this Superman, I'd read it. I'd buy it.
I mean, yeah, I think I almost wish that this was like a book that, like, all these stories and these creative teams each got like one full issue, and it was just announced that Superman the World was going to be a 12-issue run or something, instead of being a collection like this. Like, some of these stories got to be an entire issue. It was like one a month for like a year, just because some of these stories, I feel like you said, like, they needed to breathe, because you have to introduce Superman, you know, introduce a fight, try to make some character development, and then wrap it up in 8 pages.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to fit it into your world or whatever, I don't know. I think it would have been really nice to see some things just spread out a little bit more.
Well, one of the things that I liked as a thread for this book is the fact that Lois and Clark are investigative journalists. They do travel to get stories and stuff, and sometimes that's what has brought them to a country, and that is why Superman is in that country to save the day. And that's a nice little through line that they used for a decent chunk of the stories.
Mm-hmm.
A problem I had throughout is I felt like a lot of these writers, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have picked people from these nations, but I feel like they went, are you a talented writer and artist from this nation? You're hired. That's the last question. And a lot of these you could just tell that they don't really know much or anything about Superman and his world. You know, like, I think it would have been really cool if the Mexico one did something with Gangbuster. or there's just that's one example, but there's a lot of multicultural, multinational characters from some of these countries in Superman's world. Would have been cool to see them show up in this, and I did not get the impression that the writers were aware of a lot of his continuity, to be honest.
Yeah, it makes sense because a lot of them don't show up a lot of the times, and there are quite a few characters around. But also, at any point, like new characters or existing characters, what other chance do you have to just write a story and add and bring somebody in?
Mm-hmm.
It's an opportunity.
You know what was an interesting omission to me is there is not a China in here.
Mm-hmm.
And with Tom Keenan as the character that he is, that surprised me. I thought I was waiting as I was going through for a Kong Keenan written by a Chinese writer, an artist, to show up, and that never came about.
And it was kind of sad. Like, we were talking about this recently. I was talking to my friend Brian on the podcast here, and I was like recommending that run. Like, I really enjoyed the Superman of China. I just wish that Kong Keenan would have gotten his own moniker instead of having to constantly be referred to as the Superman of China.
Super Dash Man.
Yeah, like, like I wish, like, something he would have gotten his own name more than like.
I really enjoyed that comic. I wish Mark Waid and Philip Kennedy Johnson had as well, because it was very clear when they were writing the character that they didn't know anything about him. He starts out as a bully. He's much more of a Booster Gold almost type character, who is living up to being Superman. And then when Mark Waid had him and Connor team up, Keenan is not exceptionally smart. He's a little bit broy, and then when Mark Waid brings him in, not only does he have Keenan speaking English, which established many times he does not know how to do. He's getting in all the other books, he's getting translated by robots or stuff like that. But he's having him explain complex math and stuff to Connor, and Connor is being treated like the doofus. And I think that probably came from a good place, but I just want to be like, hey, Mark, I kind of feel like you just went with a pretty stereotypical Asian personality for this character that doesn't have one. And that's not cool,
I feel like there's just
took Connor back to the 90s where he was acting like that, where he's been more mature lately since his return.
Yeah, there's been a real thing with, I get why they wanted to take Connor back to the jacket look, because the t-shirt is boring. But I don't think that taking him back to the jacket characterization had to come with that, because I think that the Jeff Johns era of Superboy really had him go into a lot of growth that was fantastic to read, certainly at the time, and I love to go back to it. And between that and and his Superboy run set in Smallville, and then the Lemire Superboy run, that's the Connor I wanted to see back, because that to me was the first time he felt like, oh, this kid could grow up to be Superman,
Yeah.
And I felt like they did a really good job of gradually moving him over. And then since he's been back, since Bendis brought him back, it just feels like they haven't known what to do with him. And it still baffles me.
They haven't. We've had many discussions about this.
Oh yeah. I'm probably beating a dead horse then, but
nah, you're good.
But just
you probably heard him.
Just the idea of like, all right, we want a young adult Superman to be a bisexual LGBT icon, so that those people feel represented in Superman comics. We just brought Connor Kent back from the dead. Who should we use? Well, the fact that was the math problem, and the answer they came up with was trap a 10-year-old in a volcano in a time loop until he percolates up to that level is wild to me. When it could have just been Connor. He's probably the age now where he should be a Superman, right? If he's got to be 18 or 19 at this point.
Dude, don't even get me started. Like,
yeah,
I wanted Connor, like, okay, now we're going to go down this rabbit hole a little bit, but I wanted Connor to have, and this is an idea that came from my buddy Brian, the moniker of Red Sun. And it would have been Red SUN, Sun, you know, and him to kind of step into what I call like his Nightwing role, where he has his own moniker, he becomes his own person. And Jon Kent just stayed as Superboy.
Yeah.
But you know, they aged up Jon Kent, they made him Superman, which is confusing, and then they were going to give him the moniker now recently of Super Son, but he's really been absent in a lot of the comics recently. And then, you know, Connor's just Superboy, and I'm like, no, I think he needs to grow up and get his next phase like Nightwing thing.
Oh yeah, I agree. Well, and you know, I don't know if you've noticed, but they seem to be having a hard time deciding what age Jon is.
Yeah.
In the Treasury, he's a kid again. In Superman Unlimited, he seems to be very young, and then in the Wonder Woman book, he seems to be Damian's age.
Don't even get me started on the whole Wonder Woman with Trinity thing that I still doesn't know how this is going to work out. Where like she's been
all
there, but
books always seem like they never fit.
Yeah.
So like that whole thing, and then yeah, when you compare how he was just a little younger, like a year or two younger than Damian, and then he became older than Damian. But then you still don't know exactly where all that, like where Damian takes place. Like,
yeah.
And when they do these stories, like you say about Superman Unlimited, like we're not even sure what continuity or if that's in like main continuity. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I started to say, by the way, speaking of him having his Nightwing moment, the one that I keep wanting to know why they haven't done is make him the Guardian. They already years ago they gave him the Newsboy Legion and Cadmus as part of his setup, as part of his superhero world. He's friends with Double X. He even already originally had a golden Superman logo. So just put that logo on a blue and gold costume and let him be the current Cadmus Guardian, because that's already been 11 different people, you know, and then he can have all of that. He can have all that architecture that he already has as his support cast, and you have his Nightwing name.
I just feel like that they've brought, you have different artists and stuff, and this is why editors are so important and supposed to really help out. But you've just had so many artists and stuff come in and writers and do stuff, and you're just kind of like, you're bringing back stuff, but then we have this whole thing like, what's his face? Philip Kennedy Johnson, you know, brought in the two Kryptonian kids,
Red Sun and Starchild.
Yeah. And then when Joshua Williamson comes in, he's like, and no, you know? So
I'm hoping that his Book of L. Have you read Book of L #1 yet?
I did read Book of L #1.
I'm hoping that he's going to bring that to some kind of satisfactory conclusion and explain why Superman adopted 2 children and then they got milk cartoned, you know, out of nowhere.
And that is just some of the problems that we face.
I don't blame, you know, I like Philip Kennedy Johnson's run though, but I don't blame the following writers for not wanting to pick up his threads, because he gives this fantasy novel dense lore to everything he writes. Like every superhero he writes becomes a fantasy novel. And I can't imagine. I literally was trying to explain what those two kids' backstories were in a comic shop just a few weeks ago. And they were like, they're from Warworld, but they're magic. And they're descended from the gods, but they're Kryptonian, but they're not. And I'm like, it makes a little more sense if you read all 50 issues or whatever in order. But those kids have such a horrible elevator pitch. Like it makes it really hard for any other writer to pick them up. And almost everything PKJ writes is like that. It's not sum upable.
Yeah, Warworld Saga was pretty awesome, but you're right. That's a tough thing to take on after somebody wrote that.
Oh, I loved it. I'm not talking. I'm not trying to say anything bad about that story. It's just like
I'm looking forward to his Book of L that's going on right now. I haven't started it yet.
First issue was great. Although my favorite new Superman book right now is the first two issues of that Kryptonite Spectrum book.
I haven't read it yet. The first one did drop on the app.
I saw that issue 2 just came out too, so
they have a little bit. What I was talking about, the biggest criticism I have of them is like the World book that we're talking about. They have a little bit of that. I don't know how much you guys actually know about Superman. They kind of give me the vibe that they watched Smallville and read All-Star Superman. But it reads really almost like a sidequel to All-Star Superman. And the art is stellar and it's very Silver Age in a fun way. I don't know where it's going. I don't know if they're going to stick the landing, but I loved the first two issues.
That's always my fear in some of these stories is like they start great, but then it comes to the ending, something falls apart. Now, Logan, one thing I did mention at the top of the show, but I'd like for you to kind of pitch and tell our listeners about your podcast, what it is that you do and everything. Your podcast, your show.
Well, see, I was throwing shade at Philip Kennedy Johnson for being bad at elevator pitches, and now here I am. So the premise of Single Bound is me and my wife, we are going through single issues of comics that stand on their own. Because the idea for the show came from a guy, Dennis Camp, started writing last year, and his Ultimate series is very much like every issue is self-contained to a degree. And it made me realize how much I loved that about old comics. And it was something that the medium really lost in the era of the trade paperback. So we're trying to go, and it's funny, I say that now and I just realized we haven't done any Dennis Camp stories for the show yet. So I got to pencil that in. Sorry, Dennis. But so we're going through, and every week we pick one single issue and review it. And we try to tell people what it's going to be the week ahead of time. Although I think the next one we're going to cheat. We told people it was going to be either Amethyst or Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, but it's going to be Spider-Girl because we're both on a big Spider-Girl kick right now. But we alternate. So we do one Superman-related issue because I'm Superman obsessed. And then we do one not Superman issue that can be anything. We've done The Spirit. We've done Marvel, DC, just whatever, as long as it fits between its staples, right? That the odd episodes can be that. And we have a good time.
How are you feeling about this new Batman run then?
I've read the first issue, and I read the issue twice. Has everybody read it here?
I did read it, yes. James, have you got to read it?
No.
Okay, I'll try to keep it spoiler free.
It's one I had to go seek out and get because it's not on the app yet, but everyone's talking about it because the premise is supposed to be every issue is a self-contained story.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was really excited about it. My first read through, I was kind of tepid on it. I didn't hate it, but I went, I don't. And then I read it again, which is a sign that it's pretty good. That I just, of my own volition, was like, I'm just going to go back through that comic again. And I enjoyed it a lot more the second time. I think I'm very interested in exactly that part of it, because it didn't dawn on me until after I had read it that it was a self-contained story that told the whole thing in one go. And I like how it has a kind of like Dick Sprang-esque Batman flavor to it that I didn't really think about the first time I read it. But as I sat with it, I got to thinking about that more, and I was like, that's really cool. That it's almost like this, this Silver Age Batman comic through a modern lens, which you see a lot with Superman, but they hardly ever do that with Batman unless it's Grant Morrison. So I think I'm going to stay on it. I think there's some cool stuff going on.
I like the idea of having some sort of self-contained story.
Yeah. Makes it easy to jump on in any issue if that's the case.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, for just referring to like someone to read, instead of instead of committing to these whatever, like 6 issues, or whatever it is.
I do think I think because the more I thought about it, everything that I had an issue with is something the run inherited, not that it did to itself. Like AI Alfred. I was like, why do we need this? And then the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, because somebody else unscrewed Alfred's head. So if you want to have Alfred, you got to do this. And then it's like Vandal Savage is the police commissioner is bonkers to me.
Yes, it is.
Like that just, but then the more I sat with it, I was like, well, they didn't pick that. That's, that's the baton they were handed. So,
and that's the tough part is like, oh, I'm thinking about this. And then, yeah, you're like, hey, you're going to write Superman. And awesome. And then you get handed in this situation and you're like, oh man, I really can't, do the story that I wanted because I have to first either ignore some stuff or go fix some things up.
Yeah. Right. And even if you want to fix it, and I don't know that you can do, what's suffering a lot from that right now is the Joe Kelly Spider-Man run. I'm a huge Joe Kelly fan because of his Superman run. And I picked the first couple issues of that up, and now they're just piling up because I don't have any problem with the comic. I hate Spider-Man's status quo so much right now that it is messing with the enjoyment of the book, and that's happening a little bit with this Batman. And it wasn't that long ago when Superman's Identity was out, during the Bendis run, during the handoff from Bendis to PKJ, that I had that same feeling about Superman. But I don't feel that way now. So sometimes, if you hang in there, you'll think things are bad, and then the quality of the story will sit up like The Undertaker, and you're back in the game.
Yeah, Williamson's done some good stuff with Superman recently. Some interesting arcs, some good stories, and really moved a few bits of characterization forward. Something new with Lex Luthor finally.
Oh yeah. That whole thing has been great. I'm a big Silver Banshee guy. Everybody has one obscure Superman villain that they're like, this is the one. And for me, it's like either the Eradicator or Silver Banshee. But I think that they're hopefully finally going to move her back into being one of his most dangerous enemies.
That'll be really hurtful for Jimmy, though.
Yeah, I'm about to say, how do you feel about the, good old Jimmy Olsen dating her?
I think that was a stepping stone to a bigger thing. When it first started, I was like, when it first started, I really wanted to talk to Joshua Williamson about, like, you know how many people this woman has killed? It's a lot.
But my thing is, but that comes down to, like, has she? Because we've gone through
That's true.
all these crises, and then the omniverse, where you're like, I don't even know how much is the backstory and connected, and I just kind of have to roll with it, because there's so much that's not a through line anymore. And I think that's where, even as fans who continually read these things, we get really tired.
Yeah.
And we're like, and we reach for such things we go back to, like For All Seasons or All Stars, something, a self-contained story that I can understand this world. And I'm not like, well, did this happen here? Does this work? When did this happen? I mean, they had to retcon, like, Superman fighting Doomsday and stuff to Jon Kent learning about it and understanding it and all that. Like, so I don't know, but
yeah. I mean, it's really tough, over the years, the way things change, all the different writers, all the different stories, it is kind of cool just in the modern era how they have how they've opened up the history, the stories. Like, any writer can kind of take something obscure, a story they enjoyed from years ago, and kind of pick up from there, and what's happening now as a result of what happened from a story 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's tough. But I said that to say that, once I kind of put those things away and realized that, oh no, they're not turning Silver Banshee good, really. They're setting her up for a fall back to kind of where she was in the Byrne era.
Right.
I'm rereading the Triangle Omnibus right now.
Oh, nice.
One of the last Silver Banshee stories I read, she tackles Superman out of the top story, like, window of his apartment, and when they get down to the ground, she punches him in the mouth, and he's out. He's unconscious. Fair fight, looking at each other, clock cleaned, right? And takes him where he's going. And I was just sitting there reading that, going, God, this, and she didn't have kryptonite, maybe the magic thing, but that's always wishy-washy. But still, like, this character, you fast forward a couple years and she's just one of the Revenge Squad. Yeah. And she's beating up, and she's teaming up with people like Puzzler and Hellgramite, Bloodsport, and it's.
I think that comes from writers not knowing what to do with certain characters, and how to write them. And I think that Silver Banshee is a character that I would like to see come back in some form in live action, because it's could be a top tier Superman villain.
Yeah. Well, she has such a great look, and one of the things I like about her is potential. Like, there is this, she's cursed because of the family she's in. That's how she ended up in this situation. So there's an incredible, inherited family trauma story with Silver Banshee that's just sitting on a plate, and everybody just keeps walking past it, like.
No, and I think that is a great way of opening that up and talking about trauma and generational trauma, the sins of the past and the family, and passed on, the child inherit it.
Yeah.
And I'm also just really tired, though, of, like, not every villain needs to be a sympathetic villain, and not every villain needs to, like, be redeemed and turn good. Like, there are sometimes I just want a villain to be bad, to go against my hero.
Especially the way that they do it, like, this is a big 180 from the Silver Banshee thing I was just talking about, but I used to have a good buddy who was really pretty badly abused by his parents as a kid. And I didn't notice until I started talking to him about comics and movies and stuff. He had a real pet peeve that every heinous bad guy, modern writers want to write in that they were beat as a kid. And he had a real pet peeve that has bled over into me, where he was like, can you imagine what it's like to read that as an abused kid? And be like, every single one of these guys, if we want them to be a real, unforgivable lunatic, and we don't want to put a lot of work into explaining it, we just have them get beat as a kid. How many people in this country do you think read that with their histories and go and internalize that on some level?
No, I believe it.
Yeah.
Be like, it's almost like, oh, is that who I'm supposed to be? Is that who I'm supposed to be? I mean, coming from my background in employment and everything, like, it's very important that we put positive stories out there. Like, one of my kids on my caseload, I sent him Superman Up in the Sky to read. And then I found a couple of Superman books at Dollar Tree that are $1.25, and they're all issue ones, and I sent to him, just and trying to pick out the stories that I think both positively impact kids in these in these situations. But I think we're gonna put a pin in it for today, guys, just because we've talked about it, and I think Logan, you could definitely be someone that we need to have on more often, because we could keep talking forever. And
anytime.
Who knows where our conversation could continually take us. But anything you want to plug or say before we get out of here today?
Well, yeah, I kind of did the plug for Single Bound, and we're on Spotify and barely on YouTube right now. We're very early days. I will say our email is singleboundpod@gmail.com. If you are listening to this and you email and you listen to podcasts and you have a question and you email and it seems like they never get it because it's just lost in this massive inbox, my brother in Christ, this is your moment. There is nobody in our inbox. If you send one in, it's going right to the top shelf. So please, if you have an issue that you want to recommend or a question or anything, this is where to jump on. But we have a lot of fun over there, and we're a read along podcast with a very low work effort barrier for entry. It is usually only going to be about 24 pages you got to read to get ready for the episode.
All right,
that's good.
We're like, yay! All right,
yeah,
sounds good.
And we're like, which 300-page, storyline are we reading?
Let me also say, and I can brag on it because I didn't write it. I think we got one of the best theme songs. My buddy Ed put it together. He's a rapper, and he recut the Fleischer intro to a hip hop beat that he wrote. And God, I listen to it for fun. It makes me feel like a big narcissist, but but I've got the one he sent me is about 2 minutes on a loop, and it's a legitimately good song.
Nice. Check it out.
There you go. All right, everybody, check out Single Bound. Check out just local comics. We dropped a lot of names of some different books to check out today. And we appreciate your feedback. And Logan, you are welcome back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
You're very welcome.
Look up in the sky, the birds.